I wanted to say thank you for sharing this, because you are literally, I think, the first person I thought of when we started this journey. I'm like, we have to interview Stephanie. Your story is beautiful and amazing, and really also is very modern, right? In terms of sort of the challenges that you went through during your life as a lawyer, and having been with you for 3 or 4 years through that period before you decided to adopt Grace, or around the,
Oh, wow.
I saw a lot. And
wow. And
but it was impressive.
the first thing that just thought of when you said that, Flo, was, oh my God, you guys knew each other before even the whole adoption process. So yeah, my first question is, well, what was the spark? Well, we can go into your life, like what it was before you decided to have that spark in your mind. But why don't we start? What was the spark that, like, well, you know what? I want to adopt.
That goes way back. So I have, I've always wanted to adopt ever since I was a little girl. But I actually thought that I would want to adopt and give birth. So, and the reason for that is I have these cousins. My aunt and uncle gave birth to 6 kids and then adopted 2 through foster care. And so I grew up with that as like a model, and I always thought that was so cool. And then also I grew up going to all Catholic schools, and we used to go down to Mexico to do service trips at an orphanage. And so I had that in my mind too, like, wait, I mean, I'm in high school and I'm like, but can't I take them home? You know? And so I had that idea of wanting to take kids out of orphanages from a very young age too. And so always in the back of my mind, I thought, yeah, I'm going to get married and have kids, but I really hope my husband would be open to the idea of also adopting some kids. So that was always like a dream of mine.
Wow, that's really unique to be able to see that at such a young age.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, okay, so that was a spark I was not expecting that answer. That's great. So the spark happened when you're young. So now let's fast forward to when you're like doing you're living your life.
I'm living my life.
Yeah.
And, you know, and as Flo knows, I'm like dating. I had a really great career. I'm a lawyer, and now I'm a business executive, but I really wanted to get married, like, and have kids. Like, that was my goal. And so and LA's crazy and it can be difficult. But I fortunately did have a couple of women that I knew professionally who had either given birth to or adopted kids on their own. So that was like my safety net. Like, you know, at some point you can just like pull the plug and be like, I'm going to just do this. So, but I was still trying to like do it like the you know, steps way. And I know a lot of women will say, like one friend of mine was like, if I'm not married by 35, I'm getting myself knocked up. And I was like, you know, at 35, I was nowhere near ready to do that. And I decided I wasn't going to set an age, that I was just going to know when it was time for me to do that. And that's kind of like, I tend to be more like intuitive and emotional. So,
that's actually nice hearing from a lawyer.
Also, like,
I would have been a lawyer in another lifetime. I'm a Libra, so that was a compliment.
Yeah, Brandy, I have to tell you, Stephanie's one of the best lawyers I've ever worked for.
I'm sure, yes.
Like, that is just absolutely amazing. Like, the intuitiveness she brings to the role, it's amazing. Anyway,
that's special.
It is special.
Was it even in your mindset to be like, well, my eggs, I'm getting, like, oh my God.
Back then, freezing your eggs. I think by the time freezing your eggs came around, I was just a little too old to do it. So even like the idea of like, well, do you want to freeze your eggs? It was not on the table. So I think I always knew that if I was going to do it on my own, I was going to adopt, because I'd always wanted to adopt. And I love the idea of giving birth to a child with someone. Like, look at this that we made. That's you and me together. Like, I thought that would be really cool. But for me, the idea of doing it with with a sperm donor, I was not interested in that at all. So I knew if I was going to
Yeah.
do it on my own, I was going to adopt. So there's like this progression of my birthday parties. So my 42nd birthday party, I had a party at 40 Deuce. Were you there, Flo?
I feel like I was.
40 Deuce means 42. And so it was like bottle service. And I was like, honestly,
Oh yeah.
I was that girl. And then my 43rd birthday, I'd had to go on a trip to Atlanta, and I flew home on my birthday, and I was like taking a bubble bath. So that's like already like, okay, we're winding down on the whole birthday thing. And I'm sitting there in my bubble bath on my 43rd birthday, and it was like tap, tap, tap. Like, oh, it's time. I'm gonna do this.
Wow.
And it was just
Wow.
like, just sitting there on that day and with complete clarity, like there was no hemming and hawing, like, is it time? Is it not time? It was like that day, it was like, boom, it's time. Now,
Wow.
the thing is, if you rewind to when Grace was conceived, she would have been conceived probably late August, early September. So she was on this earth in her birth mother's uterus at the time that I tapped.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
like, oh, come get me, mom.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah,
There's like no words. That's why
There's no words.
Yeah, there's no words. But there is a moment of pause because I have to turn down my son's video game.
oh my god.
Ah,
I don't have any tissues. I didn't think I was gonna cry. Oh, it's an amazing story.
I've heard all this before. Yeah.
Sebastian's a cute kid.
How's the Rat King?
Thanks for waiting. So yes, miracles all around. Miracles
Okay.
are happening.
So I got the idea, and then I just went, and this is where the, like, what you'd expect of a lawyer, like, I get really like focused, and so I just started researching like a lunatic. You know, all the places you can, you know, go to adopt. Do I want to do domestic? Do I want to do international? And I was literally not sleeping. I was just like
Yeah.
asking everyone I know, who do you know who's done this? Who can I meet with? Blah, blah, blah. And I just went into overdrive. And the thing is that in the back of my mind, I was like, it's going to be international and it's probably going to be Ethiopia. But I had to, I don't know why.
Okay.
I had to make it, like, I had to research it so I could justify it in a logical way to myself. And so I did. I spent like a lot of time researching. You know, I looked into domestic adoption. I looked into international adoption. Domestic adoption, I met with an adoption lawyer. And what was appealing about domestic is that you can get a newborn. And since I thought, well, at my age, I'm probably only going to have one child, I would love to be able to take that child from, you know, through the whole, have that whole experience, have the infant experience, you know, have that whole experience. And also, if I'm going to be a single working mom, the, you know, longer a kid's in foster care or group care, you know, the more chances that they're going to have issues with you know, attachment or, you know, whatever. And so I was like, let's stack the cards in my favor.
Okay.
But the way that you can adopt a newborn here in the United States is basically like dating, which I'd already been doing for so long. Like, you have to like meet birth moms and like hope they like you and hope they pick you instead of somebody else. And
Wow.
after you go through the whole process, you know, I had like a few friends who like the birth mom gave birth and then they changed their mind, and you know,
Yeah. Ugh.
and it just sounded like such a roller coaster. Also, if you're at least with this lawyer who's like, there's like one guy, like I literally don't know anyone who didn't use this guy. Like everyone I know in LA used this guy. I'm sure there is somebody else, but anytime someone adopted, I'm like, so you use that guy David? And they're like, yeah, of course.
Well, at that point, you already had a circle of friends. It sounds like, or some people adopted already, or they're or saying go for it, or
Yeah.
okay.
So yeah, so he was really very, very discouraging of wanting a specific gender, and I, being on my own, really wanted a girl.
Yeah.
And if I had, you know, the opportunity to have more than one, I'd maybe be like not so set up. I was like, you know what, if it's just me, I think it's going to be so much easier to have girl. And he was like, yeah, because for him, his job's a lot easier if he's not worrying about that. He kind of kept pushing me on race. Like, I can get you a white baby. That's really easy. We can make sure that we know who the birth parents are. No problem. Like, I don't care about that. But like, you shouldn't care about gender. I mean, when you give birth to a baby, you don't get to pick the gender. And I'm like, but I'm not giving birth to a baby.
But you're not going to. Exactly.
Yeah, so it was really weird. Like, he wanted me to care about things I didn't care about, but he didn't really support me, like, caring about things I did care about. So I started, like, researching internationally more and kind of put that idea of domestic adoption aside. And I came up with a list of really logical reasons why Ethiopia was good. You could get babies younger. There's very little drug and alcohol use in that country. The care in the orphanages is known to be like very like loving and attentive, which I find to be very true. So I had like this great long list of nice practical reasons to justify the decision that my heart had already kind of made. That's where I was going, and so I backed it up with facts, and I searched for an agency, found an agency. They gave me all the paperwork. The paperwork that you have to do is so intense. It's like stacks and stacks of paperwork, and so that's where I went into lawyer mode, and I like got all the paperwork done. You show up to your first meeting and they think they're going to explain the paperwork to you because it's overwhelming. And I'm like, oh, it's all done. So it's notarized and the fingerprints and here's the seal. And so we're done, right? And she was like, we have literally never had that happen. That you showed up with the paperwork all done.
Now, do people that obviously aren't lawyers that are going through that process, obviously, do they need a lawyer to go through that kind of process or not necessarily?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Goodness, no, your social worker helps you through it. So that's why you're supposed to have several meetings with the social worker to help you figure out how to fill out all the paperwork. And, each one, like this one needs the seal of the Secretary of State and this one needs, there's all this stuff. So they usually help you through it because it's very overwhelming. But I just did it.
Yeah.
You have to get like a medical exam. You have to have like friends and family write letters of recommendation for you. Like there's like a lot you have to go through to prove that you can financially. Someone comes and inspects your home. So
how long was that process when you went to the table and showed him everything and for you?
So I went to the table, I think in like April. By that time I'd like picked an agency, gotten signed up and everything. And then they, logged me into their program. That took a few months. And then it was like a couple of months wait to get my referral.
Okay.
So I decided to adopt in December and I got my referral the following September. So it was actually pretty quick.
Yeah, less than a year.
I traveled to pick her up almost a year to the date. So my birthday's December 5th. I traveled December 7th the following year.
Yes, because I'm tracking it when she was conceived now. Because that's in my head.
So she was born May 22nd. And I got the referral September 22nd.
Okay.
So she was just a little peanut at the time that they sent me, they send you all of her information and a picture.
Oh my gosh. Yes, we will come to that. That's amazing. Let's just fast forward to the part where you get her for our listeners and viewers. So for those that are considering or thinking that this is an option, they can obviously hear it from the horse's mouth, from someone that's going through the domestic and the international, because I didn't know that those kind of questions would arise from someone such as David was his name, which I guess is valid in that arena. I don't know. Yeah. But it's what came to me was, oh, but you're still the mom. You're still the parent. So your needs can be met. Remember when I said, oh, it's all about the baby. Yes. And hello, I'm living a life with raising this child. I would like to have a say.
Yeah.
and how it goes.
And you're better off placing, a child, if somebody knows what's going to be right for them, you're better off placing a child
Oh,
that's going to, meet their needs. And, I understand that they're in a position, because even in international adoption, they're always trying to encourage you to take special needs kids and take older kids. And absolutely, those kids need homes. But if I feel like, as a full-time working mom, and single, I'm not going to have the capacity to deal with that, you should really honor that I'm telling you that.
that's great
Yeah.
to hear. That's great to know. That's great to learn. I'm saying,
They
yeah.
kind of shame you just a little bit if you don't want to.
Just a little.
And it's something that we talk about, Brandy, is the self-advocacy. I mean, that's something that knowing Stephanie the way that I know her, like, that was not a problem for her. The ability to advocate for what she wanted and to walk away when people were pressuring her to do things she didn't want to do. And but for a lot of people, that would be intimidating, right? Like,
And shame really, I went to Catholic school, so shame does work on me. So it did stay focused, because I was only going to pretty much get one shot at this. So I needed to, stack the cards in our favor to make it work.
I am really inspired because as I'm creating Delivery Diaries as a whole umbrella, I knew when I say prenatal, it's all more like, okay, before baby or before child. And I don't want to compare it the same, like giving birth and adoption, but it's like the before, like what's happening before this child is brought into a family, because this is your experience of like what's happening before. It's almost like your prenatal experience. It's like you have to advocate for yourself. You want to be able to create your environment. You got to mentally and physically prepare yourself for creating a family. And that's valid and important, and to honor your wishes too. Does this all make sense? I'm actually talking it out loud because this is the first time hearing something like this experience. And it just brings more, I feel it brings more empathy to another area of the adoption arena.
Yeah.
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, it does. And I do remember at one point during this process, Stephanie said to me, it's sort of like being pregnant, I think. Like
I don't know
what we were talking about, but she's like, you're sitting here, you're waiting for all of this stuff to come together to have a baby, to have a person.
Well, you're creating this world. Yeah. You're creating your environment. Yeah. You're getting mentally, physically prepared. And so you want to honor how you're going to raise this child. Right. So that's how I don't know how else to put it into words, but it's like,
baby's not cooking, but you're like, you're just sitting there waiting. Yeah.
Yeah. But you're preparing.
Waiting, like months of waiting. Like, okay.
The anticipation. You're waiting and you get matched and you get this picture, right?
Yes. The picture came in September. I was at work when I was at Warner Brothers the first time. And I was like, I got like a message on my cell phone, and I was across the lot at the gym. And I got a message from the agency on my cell phone, and they don't call you unless like there's a reason. So I knew like this is it. And so I'm like in my like stilettos, like trying to like run across the lot.
Like, you are my jam, Stephanie. I love working woman, doing her thing, like looking all cutesy. Let's get this done. Let's go. Okay.
But not really running. And and so like I got in my office and I like, because this is how you meet your baby. Oh. And so I'm like I click on the email and there's no attachment. So I'm like, well, there's not going to be. So they only had her name and like some facts about her, like the date she was born and everything. And it's like, what facts can there be? Like, who cares? Like how, much she weighs or, they're like, can she speak? No. I'm like, well, she's 3 months old. So, okay, good. So like, I like, can I get a photo? She's like, yeah, I'm sorry. I don't have it yet. I should have it tomorrow. I'm like, you are killing me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's rough.
I wait till the next day to get the photo. And I remember my assistant, like, do you want me to step out? Do you want it because you're going to click on that photo. You're going to see your baby and you're sitting in your office. I mean, it's just such a weird way to meet your baby.
Mm-hmm.
And so I click on the photo and she's just, She has these like eyes that are like saucers. And the way she's looking at the camera, I mean, it feels like she's looking right at me. And she's just so like amazing. And you're like, oh my God, can I get on a plane right now? I need to get on a plane right this minute and go get her.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you have to like wait. And then she tells me like, oh, actually, I'm so sorry. I was like, this is amazing. Like, what do we do? When can I come? And I knew it would be right away, but she's like, oh no, I'm so sorry. Some of the paperwork's not in yet. It'll probably take like about 10 days before I can officially refer this baby to you. I'm like, ah! So she's not technically available for adoption yet.
Why did they jump the gun like that? That's such a bad tease.
Screwed up. They just
screw up. Okay.
It's just a screw up. So like now I have to sit there and like stare at her picture for 10 days and wonder if she's even available.
Yeah.
And here's something else that's really crazy. So the agency knew that there was this other family that lived near me that was going through the process also in Ethiopia at the same time. So they're like, oh, do you guys want to exchange information? And so I met this couple. They're super nice. We're still friends. And they were going through the process. We were at the same time. They got the referral to their baby at that same day, 20 minutes before I did, which means there were two babies on the stack. One went to them and one went to me. It could have.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
That is so uncanny. Oh my God.
So uncanny. They live in Studio City. Grace went to middle school with this girl.
Well, because you knew each other by then now, right? Did you guys, did they grow up together?
Not really. Like they
Okay, but you knew each other.
Friends, but they knew each other. Like we had dates every now and then. But they honestly did it. It's weird. Like they didn't really connect. Like they like no, you guys were in an orphanage together in Ethiopia. They're like, okay, well, whatever. Like that. Like they weren't.
Oh my gosh, Stephanie, that's a movie. When are you going to write your screenplay on that one? Oh my gosh, wow. What are the chances?
They knew each other. They still know each other. They know of each other, but they've never really been friends. Which is like, but you guys were in the same orphanage. Okay,
I know, and the same town, but it could have gone any other which way. And that's the uncanny part. It's just like, how are the powers that be?
Feels like it couldn't have. Like now it feels like, well, obviously it couldn't have. Like that was, she was meant to be my kid, and now she was meant to be their kid. Like it feels like it could have, but if we're being honest, it could have.
Mm-hmm. Would you like to share the organization in our show notes?
So it's Children's House International.
Okay,
was who I did the adoption through, and I mean they were great. You know, there were things like them spurring up the referral, and there are things that we'll get to that weren't perfect, but nothing's perfect. And honestly, I thought they were really great.
You said you avoided the roller coaster of domestic, but what kind of ride or what emotional toll was there? Just the anticipation and. Can you share that?
Yeah. So, I mean, roller coaster is like the perfect word for it because, you know, when I'm telling you like this, like, oh, well, I didn't get the picture until the next day. Like, I'm like, haha, now, but like that, then like, I literally cannot wait another day for that picture. I have to have it today, you know? And then, that 10 days of not knowing, being in that weird limbo of like, I don't know if that's my baby or not. Mm-hmm. And it was really funny, and I'd forgotten about this. I went back. I had done a blog back in the day, and it's been taken down. But I went back. I told Flo yesterday. I went back to read the blog to refresh my memory, and I forgot that when I got her photo, and then I found out that she wasn't officially referred to me. I was like, well, I'm not gonna tell anyone then, you know, because it's not official. Well, I got to tell Courtney, my assistant, because she's right outside my door, and and Matt Bierman came in. Well, I mean, he's like, you have a weird little Cheshire Cat look going on. What's happening with you? And then I told him. And then,
it's like if you're pregnant. I can't tell anyone. Don't say anything until the official. This warms my heart.
Oh, neck. She's my best friend. She doesn't count.
Oh.
And then I told like 4 more people. But that's it. You know?
I love it. I love it all.
These 10 people.
Yes, that's good. Oh my God.
This is true with pregnancy too. You think
that's what I'm saying.
if this doesn't happen, I'm going to fall apart. And so I'm going to need to fall apart with people. I can't fall apart by myself. So
yes. That's amazing as far as having that village with you. It's all that emotional, that's whole human experience.
Yeah.
That experience. Okay. How exciting now.
When your referral becomes official, and the emotion changes because this is my kid and I'm angry that you're not letting me take her and bring her home. Why is my child in this group home where I'm not taking care of her? Like, then I was like mad. Every day I was mad. And I started waking up in the middle of the night thinking I heard her crying. And I would like get up and walk toward her room where she wasn't because she was still in Ethiopia. And so like from, like that, like October until I went to get her, I was just mad that like they were keeping her from me. Like, like she's my baby. She shouldn't be there. She should be home with me. Like, let's get the show on the road,
Yes. Yes. Yeah. It's that motherly internal like instinct you can't explain. It's all emotions coming. Yeah. So valid. Thank you for sharing that part. Cause, I don't think that we don't know. And to hear that, connection across the world.
Across the world. Yeah. Yeah. It really was so hard. Once I saw her, it was so hard to wait. Like, it made me really mad. But I wanted to take care of her. Like, I want,
You wanted to hold her.
Yeah.
Can I?
Court date. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You had one court. Well, can I just share that? So just to pause on that. I know there's so much to go on. It's just, and again, it's not a comparison, but it's in the fact of the motherly and the bonding and longing and the instinct is because with my part of my story, I left the hospital. My son was in NICU. He was full term, but he was in NICU. And I didn't know that I left the hospital without him. But it was something I had no idea that even happens because I didn't know the NICU experience because his pediatrician like was so kind. He's like, but he has to finish his 7 days of antibiotics. I'm so sorry, Brandy. I was like, oh, so I'm getting wheeled out without my baby. So yes, the anger, the upset, it's just like, I'm so mad. But I wanted to connect that feeling of, I want my baby. I know you're taking care of him. I know he's in good hands. Give me my baby. Yes. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
That's why. Exactly. So you have that. You're like waiting for your baby, and you can. And could you logically like time and space? You knew when you were going to go to Ethiopia to get her. Like, did that?
They give you, they're always like caveats. They're like, okay, so your court date is October 22nd. If that goes through, then you can travel in 3 weeks. But they're like, don't count on it until it goes through. Don't make plans. So you're just like. And that first court date didn't go through. And here's the frustration, and this is again like for any parent, but especially being a lawyer, they don't really give you much information. So like, well, your court date didn't go through. Well, why? Like, what happened? Like, they wouldn't tell me anything. And I was like, it's my court. Could you please, like, they wouldn't tell me anything. They're like, yeah, it didn't go through. We'll let you know when you have another court date. I'm like, is that going to be days? Is it going to be weeks? Can you tell me what happened? Is there an issue? Like, don't I get to know? And no, they didn't tell me anything other than it didn't go through. They gave me some vague thing like, oh, they changed the law and they need 3 witnesses and they only had 1, but they were really, really vague. And then, you get chatter, you start connecting with other parents online, and some people are like, oh yeah, that happened to us too, but we got a new court date in 3 days. And I'm like, it's been a week and I haven't heard anything. And, you're just in agony. Like, you want to bring your kid.
Yeah.
I'm going to go break her out of jail. Like, I'm serious.
that I can imagine that's hard. Yeah. The anxiety ridden.
I think the next court date was like 3 weeks later.
So
I thought she was going to be home for Thanksgiving, and she wasn't. And I just was sitting there at Thanksgiving. Like, I was so miserable. But then the court date did go through. So I went to pick her up. I left December 7th, which is 2 days after my birthday. Yeah.
Okay. I need a breather. Whew, this is like...
It's a lot. That is a lot. And some of this I didn't know. I didn't know about the court date. I didn't know. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah. So she's there waiting for you, like with the nice ladies at the orphanage, but still.
They were so nice, but still. Yeah.
Oh, I have some questions from Flo's. This is a break. This is kind of like a
breather.
Because I'm like, I'm not emotionals with you, Stephanie. I'm like, give her the baby. How did your friends and family react when you're like, okay, this is it? Like you had that moment in the bathtub and you're telling people I'm going to adopt. And Flo,
Yeah.
that's what you also, like, how is your friends and family's reactions and your village, your soon to be village?
So my family is like very conservative and Catholic, and so I was a little nervous how they were going to react. With me being single, not to adoption, like adoption's very Catholic, but like me being single, I was nervous how they were going to react to that. And so I waited to tell them until it was like kind of happening. Like I wasn't in that like deciding stage. I was like, I've got my agency. It's going to be Ethiopia. Like I had everything done. I'm logged in.
Oh,
So that way I wouldn't have them like, if they were like going to try to talk me out of it, it would be like, it's already happening.
Like if there's a rebuttal.
Yeah. So I came to Easter with a bottle of champagne and said, hey, you got something to celebrate. And I told them, and what was interesting, and I mentioned this to Flo the other day, is my mom was like shocked, like, wow, where did this come from? And I was like, oh, we met, like all I've ever wanted was to be a mom. All I ever wanted, ever. Like there's this really corny line on Friends where Chandler's like, my wife is a mother without a baby. I'm like, here, right here.
I love it.
And so, like, I just was really, but what I realized to be fair to her is that in that generation, if there's something that you want in terms of like marriage and family that doesn't happen for you, you don't like, you pretend like you didn't want it in the first place. Like you don't deal with those uncomfortable emotions. And it wasn't really an option for women to do what I'm doing back then. So it just, I think in her mind, she probably, if she was like, forced to, she probably knew that I wanted to be a mom, but she'd talked herself out of knowing it because it's uncomfortable if she thinks it can't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually have met a lot of women who are a bit older than me who have kind of gotten real with me and said, I think it's so great what you did, women who don't have children. I wish that I had like felt that was an option for me, but I didn't. And so, and like how I saw women who had done it, which is how I knew it was an option for me. Other women have seen me, will see me do it. And, like Alana now has a baby, she saw me do it 10 years later, she did it, and so I think you kind of have to know that it's available to you to consider if it's for you.
And not just having a baby as a woman, but not married or having a partner.
Yeah, that's
I grew up Catholic too, and I am Catholic, but the whole gamut, right?
Yeah.
And so I can just recreate.
But I think the fact that it was adoption really kind of helped. Like that's a very big tradition in the Catholic Church. So they were, despite that, like, that's a surprising comment. They were very supportive. And so, and they have a great relationship with Grace now, but there was just that initial like surprise, which was surprising. My friends, on the other hand, were like, of course you're doing this.
That was my reaction. Yeah.
Oh, Flo.
Of course this is happening.
This is kind of wet.
Perfect sense. Yeah. So
makes sense to my friends because they know me.
Yeah. Wonderful.
So it was quick after you got court date. You like got on a plane.
Yeah.
Like within what, a week or 2 weeks? 2 weeks of getting your court.
Yeah, 3 weeks after you pass court is when you travel because that takes the embassy that long to get the visa paperwork through. Mm-hmm. So I traveled 3 weeks after my court date. Court date is an Ethiopian court granting you the adoption. And then you take that adoption paper and say, well, this child is now the legal child of this American citizen, to the U.S. embassy and say, well, since it's my child, you need to give her a visa.
Okay. Got it.
The adoption becomes legal, and that's what entitles her to the visa.
Okay. So it's Ethiopian courts that you're waiting on, not U.S. courts. Okay.
Exactly.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So you get this information, I'm assuming by email,
Yeah.
and then you go to the Ethiopian embassy here, or you go to the American embassy in Abu Dhabi, or what's the name? Addis Ababa. Okay.
Yeah. So that's why it's 3 weeks, because the paperwork goes through the American embassy in Ethiopia. And then when you're there, when you're in country, you actually go. It's like on the third Tuesday of every month, they issue visas. So while I was there, I had to go get her visa issued, but the paperwork was all there. I just had to show up in person to get it done.
How far was she from the embassy? Like physically, how far? Because Ethiopia is not small. Like,
no, but she was in Addis Ababa, the capital.
Okay.
So, they had someone at the orphanage who could drive us around.
Okay.
So they drove us there. Yeah.
Just the logistics of this is insane to me.
The logistics is a whole other topic. Wow. Yeah.
It's like just the practicality of you getting on a plane, and what is this 24-hour flight, right? Like you have to go to
hours.
you have to go to Europe and then get on a flight. Is that what you did? Yeah.
What were you doing in the plane? Like, did you have to get distracted? Like, I would imagine, like,
first of all, you have to pack all the stuff for the baby. So you're like packing it. And I've always been like, I used to travel a ton internationally. Like I was constantly going to Nepal and, you name it. Like I was traveling everywhere. I loved carrying on. So I would take a carry-on and I'd be gone for like 3 weeks on a carry-on. So all of a sudden I'm taking the largest suitcase I've ever known. and I went, so on my 44th birthday, my coworker who has a son a little bit older than Grace took me to Target after work on my birthday. And she just started loading all this baby stuff into my cart. Like, you're going to want this, you're going to need this. I'm like, okay. And so I just like piled all that stuff, then 2 days later into a suitcase of things that I thought I'd need for this baby I'd never met, and got on a plane and hoped that like I brought the right number of onesies,
Okay, now we're on to something. So then how long did you know you were going to be in Ethiopia to get Grace and then to come back to the States?
So you have to be there, if you get there, so I was going to get there on a Sunday, you have to be there through Thursday for sure, because they've got stuff like Tuesday you go to the embassy, when there's like stuff that they have planned, and then you can stay as long as you want after that, but you have to basically be there till Thursday. When you agree to adopt her, she gets moved from the public orphanage into your adoption agency's care center.
Oh wow! Okay.
Paying for her care and because it's just a little bit nicer care. They've got more nannies, they've got more resources, they've got cleaner water. Your kid's more likely to survive. And it does happen that they don't survive. I had that happen to a friend that I know. She had a referral that didn't make it. Because there's a lot of clean water issues there. So if you move the kid into the care center, their chances of survival go way up. So they want you to go nevertheless visit where she was relinquished, and if possible meet the birth mom, and that happens on Thursday. So they have like a whole process, and then after that it's up to you when you leave. I didn't really want to stay. I wanted to get home, so I left probably like that Friday.
Okay. Your friend came with you, stuffed everything in the cart, and you're ready to go on this 20+ hour air flight.
Adventure.
What were you doing?
Really.
Yeah, no. I'm just curious. Like, what were you doing in the plane? Were you just watching movies, distraction? Because that's a anticipation.
I was distracting myself. My brother came with me. No, actually.
Oh.
Well, my brother came with me to Ethiopia, but he flew a few days ahead because he wanted to spend a couple days in London. So we met in London. At the airport in London, and then he came with me to Addis Ababa. I honestly was thinking I was just going to go by myself, but people are like, no, you should bring somebody with you. So my mom wanted to go, but then my brother really wanted to come. And so ultimately we decided to have my brother go. And in a way that was kind of perfect because I also have a sister, but like I kind of wanted whoever came to sort of recede into the background because and my sister's very like, she's just, you know, like she would have, you know, taken charge and everything. And my brother was like basically like kind of on his phone the whole time, like sort of, you know.
Like he was giving you the space. He was granting you the space to,
Yeah.
okay.
I needed him to lift something heavy, I'd say.
Now, did you have to bring a car seat or did they have one already? Like on the plane at least?
They, no car seat at all. I was moving her in the car.
Yes.
That's terrible.
And then on the plane. Well, in another country, I'm half Filipino, so I don't remember seeing any car seats.
No.
Just different dynamic and culture. But
there's
like
no controllers either. There's like you hold your kid.
Okay, and then now transitioning, we'll get to when you meet her. I mean, it's just the logistics again. It's just mind-boggling to me. But then did you have to have what did you have with her on the plane going back to the States? Did you have a
plane, she was in my lap.
Yes. See? Okay. Well, I'm a lap baby, but still like we have all these contraptions now and like with the thought of how you transition from one country to the States.
Fact, they still have on Ethiopian Airlines, but they don't anymore. Those like bulkhead bassinets.
I've seen that on the show. Yeah, on a
those, but they gotten rid of them, and it was so lovely. So they sat us in bulkhead, and she mostly sat on my lap, but sometimes we put her on her little shelf, and she could play on her little shelf, her little bassinet.
Okay.
She's like 6.5, 7 months old at this point, right?
She was 6 months old, and she's a big girl. She was probably like 25 pounds, which is interesting. And this is jumping ahead a little bit, but like, you know, you get to build up your mommy arms when you start out with a newborn. I was handed a 25-pound baby. Yes. I would be, you know, like holding her.
That's
like, my arm's gonna fall off. It's gonna.
But that's what I'm asking. Like, how did you transition back to the States, and what did you have? Did you have a carrier back then, and like stuff like that? I'm like, whew, yes.
So I had my parents were picking us up, and I put a car seat in their car.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. That. Okay. All right. Now, thank you for just sharing that whole world of the logistics because it's still
logistics question. I have one more logistics question.
So logistics women here. Love it, mommies.
Are you there like with other parents? Like, is it like a tour group? Or was it just
this is when you meet Grace? Or was
like,
she
like the 4 days or whatever where they've got everything planned.
We're definitely setting the scene for that, Flo. We're setting it up. Because in the movies, it's like, ooh, there's like a lovely music background and you're in this nature background and then there's a line and then they hand you the baby that's being adopted.
The actual like moment that met, which is pretty intense. So we go to Ethiopia. They had originally told me we were landing on Sunday. They had originally told me that, you know, they usually don't like, because it's kind of religious area, they probably won't want to bring you over to see her on Sunday. I'm like, oh, please. So they did, which was thank goodness. We were staying like at a hotel at a Sheraton. They sent a guy over to pick us up. They take us there. And everyone else had cried already, like when they saw her picture and everything. And I hadn't. It was like, I couldn't, because I just, something could go wrong still. You know what I mean? Like I was still like, I felt really emotional, but I hadn't like cried. And I'm a big crier.
Yes, I can attest to that.
That is
in a good way. You feel your feelings.
Of course.
So, you know, it's like, and this is like a movie. Like there's like a gate and a gravel driveway, and the gate opens. And they have the orphanage director's wife standing on the porch holding Grace. And she's like, oh, they dressed her up like in a little outfit with a little hat.
Oh my gosh.
Now I can physically see her. And I just start bawling. All that pent up from that whole year of tears. Just the dam breaks and I start bawling and I jump out of the car, which I think was still moving. And then I start running up the gravel driveway. And then I think, you're going to scare this poor baby. You cannot come running toward her crying like a lunatic. She's going to like not want like
She's gonna freak out.
Yeah, 6 months. They're aware. Yeah, she's fully aware. Yeah.
But you know what? You're right. They are aware, and she like she knew exactly. Like she was okay. Like she was gonna give me a pass. Like it's okay, mom. Like I get it. It's not a big day. She just looked at me with her big gigantic eyes, and it was like movies. Like she's like, hey, and so they put her in my arms, and I'm just like. Yeah, it's just, finally, here you are. Finally from the last year and finally from our life.
Your whole life.
Oh,
Your whole life.
And she was like really, like a good sport about the fact that I couldn't stop crying. And she just like, she just settled right in, and just kept staring at me with those big eyes. And she was perfectly like settled in on me.
Mm-hmm. She's been waiting.
Yeah, people have been waiting. They tell you have to take all these classes on attachment and the chance that there will be difficulties with attachment and everything.
Yes.
I took all the classes and I was like, I'm going to take all these classes. This is not going to happen. Like it's going to be fine. And it was. It was like instantly like, oh, hi, Mom. Oh. There's all this kind of ceremonial stuff that you don't really know what's happening next and what the appropriate thing to do is. So there you hang out there, which is probably good. Like, you don't just be like, okay, thanks, bye. Like, you sit there and, they show you around like her room and everything. And there were 7 cribs in her room. One of them being this other baby who lives in Schroeder City. You sit and you get to talk to the nannies for a while, but they kept taking her at because they were losing her.
Yeah.
So I was like, hard for me to be gracious. So I was like, seriously, stop taking my baby. The nannies kept taking her, and I was like, you need to be gracious. Like they took care of her. They're losing her. You're gonna have her forever. Like calm down. But I did.
It was like, did you have your moment to say goodbye yet? Come on.
Yeah, so they're telling you like how often they feed her and what she's eating. I think we hung out there for several hours at the orphanage, and then went back to the hotel. I think probably in the evening.
There was a ceremonial type send off, or.
Yeah, but
when
it was over days. So every day.
Oh, over days. Okay.
They're like, oh, and so tomorrow you'll come back at 10 a.m. The guy will come get you. And you're like, oh, okay. So they have you come back every day. And the minute you walk in, they take your baby. I'm like, okay, bye. They really
terrifying.
Wanted to dote on them, which is sweet. But
what part is terrifying, Flo? I'm just curious.
Okay, so so I think about it like my only reference is like the hospital, right? Which was really easy for me. Like I was super fortunate, and like, but the idea that you walk into somewhere and these people who are essentially strangers then take this person that you like that is your baby, like it's your child. This is the person that you're supposed to, and then they just take her. Like I can imagine that being jarring, if not. Yeah.
From their point of view, that in their mind, I'm that person.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's a different point of view, especially for
so long, and here comes this lady. Mm-hmm. And so I'm thinking this is my baby, and they're thinking this is our baby.
Baby.
But I mean, the first night in the hotel room, I had to give her a bath at the hotel. It's like a hotel bathtub, and I'm like,
what do I do with this?
Bathe a baby in here.
Exactly. And so, you're like, what do I do?
Because I was thinking, so I literally got in with her.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes that's the best, right?
Yeah. Oh, what was that like? You get to bathe with your. Oh, there's nothing. Oh, you get to bond in a special way. What was that like?
Bonding for the first time with your baby in a hotel room, which is really weird. You want to be home, but you're not. So you're going to make the best of it. So and the first night getting her to sleep. So this will answer your question about unsolicited advice. My brother who wanted to watch TV, and I was like, could you please just turn the TV off? Like, she's not used to she's got to get used to noises. I'm like, trust me when I tell you there will not be a TV blaring in my house while I'm putting my child to sleep. So can you turn it off? So he wouldn't turn the TV off. So then,
this is a sibling thing.
Yeah.
It's like my duties are done. I'm watching TV. What? It's
I'm like, one day of your life, it's like bad British TV, and like just turn it off. No, not used to noise. So I'm trying to get her to sleep, and he's telling me, just put her down and let her cry. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not doing that. And if I were going to do that, I certainly wouldn't start it tonight when we just met. Like, and I never wanted to do that, but like, so we're like bickering about, how to put the baby to sleep.
I'd been like, get your own room.
I seriously, now when I look back, I'm like, why didn't I just pay for a room for him?
Yep. So then how did that end?
He eventually went to
that
sleep.
First night.
The chatter of the stupid TV on. She's always been a good sleeper. But yeah, that was not the circumstances under which I wanted to put my child to sleep for the first time.
Of course. Like the mommy's wishes were not honored. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Definitely not.
And what I meant to go back to, Flo, is like I get the scary part of the stranger part, and thanks for clarifying that, Stephanie, because the point of view of different, not only cultures, but of different point of view of just people is because I'm not familiar with the adoption process, domestic or international, just from friends that I know that have adopted kids and foster kids. But what gives me such like the honor that I would say country as a whole, the culture, the honor that they put in celebrating this life that they are giving to a new family, a new mom, a new dad. I think that's something to be said of how special and unique that is, the honor that they spend time to do that. And again, I'm not familiar with all the practices, but that's how that's what I'm left with is
yeah, it's a beautiful culture. And I mean, it is one of my logical reasons for choosing Ethiopia, is that I felt like she was going to come from, a place of being, loved and cared for. And I could see that they had done that. So I was like so grateful for them. Like every time they wanted to take her from me, I was grateful for what that showed in their like emotions for her, and that she'd been cared for.
Yeah. Because that's a new insight it's just new to hear that for me too. Like, because it doesn't go like that all over the place. All over
That's
the world.
true. You go back the next day at 10 o'clock and there's this next thing that's happening. So we're at Monday afternoon at this point, Monday morning.
Yeah. So it's really like kind of unclear. Like they have like, well, you come back here, you hang out here for a while. And then they like have like a guy like drive you around so you can kind of see, the countryside or whatever. And then I think Tuesday was, we had to go get her visa. And so whatever day that was, Wednesday or Thursday, they take you to the orphanage and you're going to meet the birth mom there. And my mom was dead set against this. She was like, no, that's going to be too hard. The baby's going to want to like go back to her birth mom and it's going to be really traumatic for everyone. And I was like, that's okay though. Like I agree with them that there needs to be closure, even though she's, signed the papers and everything's done and this is legally my baby. I feel like it's the right thing to do to give everybody closure. But of course I was still apprehensive because, but you don't really know how it's going to go. And we'd spent, I guess it was Thursday, because I remember like we'd spent like a few days together, 24 hours a day, nonstop at that point. But still, I mean, this is I didn't know what to expect from this experience. Also, like parents tell you, oh, come with a list of questions that you're going to ask the birth mom about medical things and blah, 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 which I did, but none of that happened because, you get there and it's a very emotionally charged situation. And I'm like, I'm not going to sit there and drill this woman with questions. I didn't have it in me. So you get there and when she saw Grace, she was really emotional. And crying and everything. And so I was like, I wanted to give Grace to her to hold her. But Grace wouldn't go. She physically, like, like a baby that age is freakishly strong. Like,
yes.
Mm-hmm.
You can't make them. She would not go. And so I was like, kind of trying to pry her off, like, no, like, let me get a photo, I couldn't pry her off of me. She like was screaming and
Oh, that's hard.
would not go.
Oh, she knew.
Really, that's like the opposite of what my mom predicted. Like, she wanted to hang on to her mom. She wanted to hang on to her mom. And she'd made that in her brain. Her brain had made that, like, this is my mom.
The transition. Yeah.
She made that transition.
Mm-hmm.
2 days.
Oh.
She wouldn't go. So the picture that we ended up getting is me holding Grace, and she slumped, and her head slumped against me, and she's stuck in her thumb because she'd just been crying, like screaming and crying.
Mm-hmm.
Her head was against me, her thumbs in her mouth, and I stood next to her birth mom, so we could have like a photo of her.
A photo, yeah.
But I couldn't get a whole photo of her cold because I literally couldn't get her to go to her. So she had, her brain had told her, like, no, this is my mom, and I'm not going back.
That's amazing.
Whew.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Emotional.
It is. It's really emotional.
Yeah, that's going to be on the title. Rollercoaster.
So it's Friday morning, and you're going to the airport with your brother who refuses to turn off the TV. So, like, that must have been so surreal.
Yeah.
Like, again,
I basically left. I was one person, and I was coming back, and I was somebody else. Like when I left, I was like this girl who went out and had fun and something every night, and I came back like a mom with a baby.
That first night was your mom there when she was home with you? Like, it was just you and her?
I didn't want anyone else there. My parents picked us up at the airport, and she would have stayed over if I had wanted her to, but I was like, I want us to have our night, like I wanted it to be us.
So you're home, you have your night to yourself, right? You and Grace, you have your time together.
And so I got to have putting her to sleep in the like more thoughtful, quiet way that I wanted to, breaking my arms off holding her. And singing to her and in a dim room, and like what I wanted, and to get her used to like these new environments, all these new smells and sounds, and taking her yet another new environment, right? Like she'd had whatever home her birth mom had for her, then the first orphanage, then the second orphanage, then a hotel room, and finally home. Like that's like a lot of bouncing around for such a little baby. So I wanted to give her this like sense of like, no, but now you're home. Now you're
That's a lot of stimulation too.
Yeah. And also, by the way, the 11-hour time difference.
Ah, yes.
Her first week home, her days and nights were switched, right? She wanted to sleep all day and play all night. So we had to like get her clock.
Sounds like my 20s. Were you on maternity leave already, obviously, because you spent that time traveling, or how did that?
Yeah. So here's another little lovely tidbit of the difference when you adopt. Most companies, at least then, mine included, do not provide maternity leave if you don't give birth. Because they say maternity leave is for like the medical recovery from getting birth. They're like, it's disability. You're not disabled because you didn't give birth.
That's why I asked, because
That's not true anymore, though, is it?
Was that back?
So the state of California now has a law that men and women can take advantage of, that you have to give, and that was in place then too. You have to give the person some time off, but most companies will pay you full salary if you're on maternity leave. But if you're taking that family leave that the state of California gives you, you get the family leave that they give you. Like they have to give you the time off, but you only get that state stipend. You don't get your salary. You just get that state stipend of like, nothing. I can't live on that, So.
And that's California.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine other states, right?
Yeah. It's insane.
We
Mm-hmm.
were arguing with the head of HR about it, and she said, "Yeah, I know. It was the same thing when I adopted. I adopted my kids, and I adopted my kids on a Friday. I went back to work on Monday." I'm like, "Right, but was that right? Like that wasn't
Mm-hmm.
right." She's like, "Well, I used my vacation time." I'm like, "Yeah, but
It's still
Also not right.
exactly.
also not right." And I was seriously like, I'm gonna make noise about this. And then my boss, God love her, found a workaround. She said, "You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna say that you're working from home for the next 12 weeks."
Wow.
And we found like a consultant who could come in and help, while I'm gone, and charge her off to shows. And we're just, don't even apply for the family leave thing. Like, you're going to work from home. That's how we do it.
Has it changed since then?
I don't think so.
Okay, that's another episode to put on my notes.
Yeah, FMLA. It's the Family Medical Leave Act, right? And
that's the conversation like we're having, that we always want to bring up, and in Delivery Diaries is, again, the post care for the mommies and daddies. Yeah. Right? Having baby, having child. It's, you still have sleep deprivation. You're still going through a transformation.
The need for this family to have some time together.
Yes.
When no matter if the kid is 10 years old or 10 days old or 10 seconds old, they need time to integrate into the family. And that it needs to be honored. Period.
Yes.
Okay, so Grace is home and you're bonding and dealing with your home life. You have a wonderful boss who's saying you're working from home.
Yes.
And how are you feeling? And how is Grace settling in? Like, how did all of that go for you guys?
So the first week was really all about getting her like clock turned around. At night, I would make her stay in her crib. Even though she was like wanting to play, I'd keep the room dark and I'd make her stay in her crib, but she wanted to play. So I would like be standing over her crib, like playing with her, and I would like fall asleep on the side of the crib, and she would like hit me in the face. Like, hey,
oh yes. Like, what are you trying to do? Wake up, mommy.
We're playing here. And so that was most nights, like me sleeping, standing over her crib. And then during the day, I would let her only sleep. Like, I think I would set the alarm. Like, I'd only let her sleep for like total 3 hours. Like, well, that counts as a nap. But then I would wake her up. And like, we'd be like playing on her floor, and I'd like fall asleep on the floor, and she'd like smack me like, wake up. So yeah, that was the first week. And then I think we had her first doctor's appointment the second week. And my mom did come to that one, which thank God. I was so sleep deprived from her being switched that I don't think I should have driven. So my mom did come to the first doctor's appointment, which was good. Grace came home with Giardia, which is
what is that?
We have it here. It's in like water. Like, they'll tell you not to drink the water in certain like camping grounds or whatever. You have to boil it so you don't get Giardia. She'd gotten it from contaminated water there, which there kids die of Giardia all the time. Here, there's some medication you take and it goes away. The doctors there had said that she had asthma. They had diagnosed her with asthma. When we got here, the pediatrician was like, it's not asthma. It was basically like kennel cough. Like, she's been in a room with a bunch of other kids, and she's got like a little junk in her throat, and she'll be fine. So she did not have asthma, thank goodness, but she did have Giardia, so she had to take some like really nasty medicine for that. But other than that, she was like super perfect and healthy. So we just kind of got like into our like, feeding, sleeping, playing cycle, those first couple of weeks. And and I had 12 weeks off. So we had a lot of time together, which was fantastic. But the whole time there was like this looming, like, you're going to have to go back to work. Don't forget you have to go to work, which was really, like, intimidating. And I had to, figure out childcare, which was very also intimidating. The maternity leave was so wonderful and like idyllic and perfect.
It was always awesome to see you with Grace. I mean, I just remember it was just like, this person is your child. Like, there's never been any issue, like looking at them and being like, no, that that human is Stephanie's child. There was no question from the very first. Like, it was just awesome. So yeah, I mean, so she's like 6 months old. So, and then you guys got a nanny, right? Like, you ended up hiring,
Yeah,
like,
I did.
she didn't live with you, but somebody who was there a lot. I remember.
Yeah.
So
I wanted, originally I'd been dead set on getting into the Warner Brothers child care center because it's supposed to be amazing, but like there's like this long wait list, so we weren't going to get in. And it's funny, like, even though I was dead set on that, like, it ended up being that like hiring a nanny was so much better for us. And I mean, honestly, I had in my little like dream of how my life was going to go, I was going to quit work and be a stay-at-home mom. So the idea of hiring a nanny was so like, I didn't want to do that. And then, and then Claudia comes into our life, and she's like so amazing. And, she and her husband are immigrants from El Salvador. They have been trying really hard to have a baby and had not been able to conceive. And so I feel like there was this double gift that working as a nanny gave her some of what she wasn't getting from not having her own children. And so it was like almost like this great gift to her that she had a baby to take care of during the day. It was a great gift to me to have this like amazing, loving, like it turned from being a negative of like, I have to leave my child every day to be like, although if you have to leave your child, to leave her with this woman who's like, has this like loving, sweet, caring way about her. And we were so, so blessed to have her. Grace loved her. I loved her. We were really, really lucky to find her.
So from then till now, Grace growing up, like anything as far as questions or identity, like is she connected to her Ethiopian heritage and culture?
I mean, I feel like what I should maybe first say is, I kind of glossed over this being like becoming an interracial family. It is something that I took very seriously. Like, I know that being like the only Black person in your family could feel very isolating. And so I really gave that a lot of serious thought. There'd be things that she was going to face in this culture that I don't face as a white woman. And, like that could feel kind of isolating. So I did take that really seriously and ultimately decided that I still felt like I could be like a good parent for her. But it was something that I was really conscious of. And I think like there are definitely parents who are like, oh, it makes no difference. I'm like, no, I think my mom would say, it doesn't make any difference. And I'm like, it really does make a difference, but it doesn't mean I shouldn't do it, but it does make a difference. But I was really like concerned about being able to do her hair because,
I remember that. I remember you
like
talking about that.
I wanted to like earn the Black community's respect for me to like be raising a Black girl. Like, I'm taking this seriously. And so I always wanted her to like leave the house with her hair like really nicely done. So like I could like show that like I was respecting, what it means to raise a Black child. And so I was really nervous that I wouldn't be good at it. And I remember this one Black friend of mine telling me, Stephanie, my mom has textured hair and she's terrible at doing hair. So I don't know why you think like the fact that you have textured hair means you will or won't be good at it. So like, and I'm like, yeah, I'm like really good at braiding. I used to always French braid my friend's hair. So like that one moment like unleashed, like, why do you think that you can't be good at it just because you weren't raised with it? So that like freed me. And I was like, yeah, I am going to be good. And you're like, your child comes with like a little bitty head of hair. So you get to kind of like learn like little by little, like how to do it. And so that was like something that was actually really daunting. And I actually met another mom who adopted a Black daughter through a babysitter who was like, and that mom was like kind of freaked out about hair. And she's like, I'm going to introduce you to this other mom who was freaked out and she's going to like, make you feel better.
So many resources and so many people that want to help.
Like part of the journey. I kind of let her lead in terms of what she wanted to know about her family situation. A lot of people like put like a picture of a birth mom in their room when they're babies and talk about it the whole way. That didn't feel right for me. So I was basically waiting for her to ask the questions. She'd notice like, I remember her saying like, your skin's like oatmeal. That's right. My skin's like oatmeal and your skin's like chocolate. Yeah. You know, like,
That's so cute.
I remember telling her she was adopted, but I don't think she knew what it meant. You know, so like there was just like an understanding kind of evolved as she was aware of the questions. And I remember there was like one final bit of the puzzle, the fact that she was adopted. She knew that I didn't get pregnant. She knew that she didn't grow in my belly. She knew that that's what it meant to be adopted. She knew that she was born in Ethiopia. Now there's something else to that, like to be born. Okay, like, and I was waiting for her to kind of want to come around to like, well, how was I born then? And she didn't want to. She's a really smart girl. She didn't want to come around to that for a long time.
So about how old was she at this time when you're having these conversations about how?
4 by the time she finally.
Oh, 4. I'm thinking like 6 or 8. Oh my gosh.
She's
so smart. And so it was clear.
No, of course. Yeah, that's great.
She was avoiding that question because I felt like she understood quantum physics by that point. You know, like she was asking so many questions
yes.
about the world, and this is like the one.
Totally.
She's not driving all the way home. So like, this is like, I was born in Ethiopia, and she was perfectly fine to leave that there, even though she kind of knew what born was. She kind of knew that after pregnant, she kind of knew, but she didn't want to know or talk about it. And I remember there being like one day where she was dancing around the issue so much, she kind of wanted to ask, but she didn't want to ask. And so I was like, listen, so I want to explain to you what this means. She was 4. And so I told her, you know, like, you weren't born out of my belly, but there was a lady in Ethiopia. And I told her, like, you were born out of her belly. And she was just like kind of like staring off into space and kind of crying. And she said, I don't ever want to talk about this again. I said, okay, but if you ever do, you know, you'll let me know. And it was probably another year or 2 before she brought it up again. And so I just took her lead. And at that point, I think she asked me, she started asking me questions about her. I said, do you have a picture of her? I said, yeah, you want to see her? You know, so she was probably 5 or 6. And I remember she was in the bathtub, and I like brought my computer and like showed her the picture. So we did it slowly, like as she was ready.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's great advice for listeners and our viewers in that process and that step. Because, you know, people might have questions on how to go about it to take the child's lead.
I don't have a dad story that you told me the other day.
Oh, yeah.
This is a really interesting landmine. So like that some kids can run into, and if they're in the situation that Grace is in growing up.
So I don't remember ever having to like explain why she didn't have a dad. She just didn't have a dad. And that was something that she accepted and didn't have more questions about. When she was in preschool, this was an amazing preschool, but it was kind of a new teacher, was questioning her, like, you know, like they were doing something with like, you know, with my mommy, this and that, what about your daddy? And she said, I don't have a dad. It's like, well, of course you have a dad. Everybody has a dad. And it's like, I don't have a dad. Which is really weird because there was some same-sex families at this school.
Yeah, in this day and age.
It was just so bizarre.
Teacher, come on.
So fortunately, Grace came home and shared this with me. So I went in the next day and I was like, what are you doing? Like, she doesn't have a dad. Of course she has a dad. Everyone has a dad. I'm like, are you talking about the fact that you need a sperm and an egg to create a human embryo? Because that's not what she understands the question to be. That's a different situation to having a dad, which she does not have. And so that's the only time that in her whole life so far that I had like a run-in with someone who was like what? Yeah.
Did that dawn on you eventually that was going to happen, or a question, or was that just like,
you know, I mean,
kind of put that to the shelf book? You shelved that and you're like, okay, when that comes up.
Maybe because we live in LA and the neighborhood that we lived in, I kind of did not expect much. You know, like you hear all of these crazy stories, you know, where people don't, you know, match their kids racially, or, you know, like you hear all these crazy stories, but I sort of didn't expect it. And as Flo said, this is my kid. And it was just so obvious that like, I just never ran into much confusion from people on that, you know, anywhere. Occasionally now it's interesting that she's older. This started when she was about 12. When we travel, people can't figure out like why, like, oh wait, you guys are together? Yeah, we're together here. You know, like,
Yeah.
I think now that she's older, but when I was caring for her, she was like an extension of me. Now she walks around like a person in the world. So it's less easy to tell that you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm half Black and half Filipino, and I have a white stepfather for over 34 years. So when we're out together, it's just like, you know, like for us, it's like normal, and we're kind of like have to manage other people's reactions. We're like, that's your, yeah. You're like,
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that now that she's older and she's more autonomous, you wouldn't necessarily be able to figure out what our relationship was. But when she was young, it was obvious what our relationship was, that people didn't really, you know, need to ask.
I get it. Let's see. How is Gracie now? I mean, I actually can imagine how she is now. You know, a very strong 15-year-old, confident. But you let us know, like, what is she like?
I mean, one of the things that I personally think is maybe a result of more early childhood experience is I've never met a more empathetic person. And I think that even though she doesn't consciously remember having, you know, been with a birth mom and then being in this place and then being in this place and then being in that place, her early days were rocky, right? Like she didn't have like a steady attachment figure in the first 6 months of her life. And I feel that maybe like makes her not take things for granted as much, and that she can see other people's point of view. She's really mad at me that I didn't take homeless people home with us. She's like, well, he needs a place to sleep, mommy. Like, he could come sleep. You have room in your bed. Like he was really, and has always been really incredibly empathetic and can take the point of view of other people. And I'm having trouble verbalizing, but in some way I feel like that's from having like, you know, a little bit of insecurity in her early days, that she kind of can feel what that feels like. Maybe, I don't know, but yeah, she's incredibly empathetic. She's really super, super smart. And she's a dancer. She's a ballet dancer. So she takes, you know, she has a very challenging school curriculum as a sophomore, and then she dances 6 days a week, 3 hours a day during the week, and like 7 hours on Saturday. So
Wow, that's wonderful.
She's just this like beautiful, like I don't know, she's just tall and gorgeous and amazing. And I really do. I hope we get to see her dance someday, because we haven't had that opportunity yet. So
her name really suits her.
Do you have any other advice you'd like to give to our listeners and viewers inside of adoption or being a mom who has that experience? Is there any last thing you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I remember somebody telling me before I was making the final decision, it's okay to just go with your gut, you know, because I think I was really trying to like find justification for what my gut was telling me was the right place for me, the right way for me to adopt. And I would say that know what feels right to you, and don't be afraid, don't second guess that, you know, like go ahead and do what feels right to you. And I mean, that could be you want to do artificial insemination, really, or that could be that, you know, you want to go to the foster care system, or you want to get, like, whatever feels right to you in your gut is probably the right thing for you.
that's awesome. I like that.
Also, like in terms of being a single mom, people always think it's like so daunting or whatever. I think it's kind of like that. The advice you give to someone if they want to be an actor, do it if you absolutely have to, because if you absolutely have to, you'll never regret it. And I like never think like, oh, this is like, people talk about how hard it is. I don't think it's hard at all. I don't think it's hard at all. I think it's the most joyous. Like, I'm so grateful that I have this opportunity to be a mom. if that's how you feel, if you feel like this is the thing that you want, don't be afraid to do it, because it's not hard. If that's what you want, it's anything but hard.
That's awesome.
That's really, that's very empowering to hear that and what's possible. So you are our first guest to kick off National Adoption Month. And thank you for sharing your experience and just your journey with Grace.
Yeah. So, I mean, Grace was delivered to you, I think, personally by divine intervention. So we want to say thank you for sharing your delivery diary. It's amazing. And you're an amazing person. And I'm really glad we got the opportunity to reconnect, because I just love you so much. All right.
There's never a time we don't have tissues on this show.
I know, right? It's like, oh.
I know.